Yes, guys, welcome back to flatcapeurotalk here. Another live stream, keeping up the promise of the weekly live streams. And it is going to be a very much a Spurs related live stream. We are going to actually be talking about Tottenham transfers. It practically, I would say, is a part two of a show that we had done before, which was predicting kind of Tottenham Hotspur transfers. It's not as much, kind of putting our own bias of who we think we should go for. Example would be like, right wing back, I would go for Ridley Baku, but there have been no connections in the past at all. So we're really just kind of trying to maybe predict more or less what Paratici, Antonio Conte really want, to bring into the side. And I think, we have some pretty, smart minds be able to do that. That last stream went really, really well. So hopefully this part two goes just as well, or even just have some good vibes in the chat. And we try to predict some transfers and hopefully we'll be right. But we're greeted by the same usual panel. Good to have you. Darius from Paxton Road. How you doing, my man?
I'm good. I'm hoping my mic is working. Hopefully you guys can hear me. So we're all good to go. I'm doing good. As you can see, I'm back home again. I've been up and down. So I'm very happy to be back home. Very happy to be doing our weekly stream. And honestly, I'm actually looking forward to how this transfer window is going. Because even though it seems like we're being linked with everybody and their mothers seems to be good players. So if it's being linked with 15 quality players, I'm not actually that mad at that. So long may it continue, but at the same time, I do kind of want to know what squad we're gonna have so we can start, planning for the future. But we've got 2 months, so can't really complain. Got a while of this pain to go.
Yeah, you have a while more to go, and I would say, just bury in, and hopefully you can get through it. Or Kieran, how you doing, my man?
I'm good. Same as not same as Darius. I've been home the whole time. But I'm happy to be back on the show once again, becoming a weekly panel at this point. But yeah, really excited to kind of jump into what we got in store today.
Yeah, and it's a rendition of what we done last time, and hopefully people will enjoy it. And everybody, like I said, while you're kind of piling in the house, 33 in the house so far, do smash that like button. But the whole kind of premise today here, everybody, is more or less just trying to predict what the Don Paratici and Antonio Conte might bring into the club. And I do also have a few questions lined up for you guys in the chat, as well as the panelists, as well as I do think this is going to be pretty good. I honestly think it's probably going to be around an hour to an hour and a half. Nice kind of sort of almost podcast, length sort of discussion. So I would say stick around, as well as if you are, watching this as a playback, do hit that like button as well. Cola's in the house. Good to see you. Just want to greet a bit of the Flat Cap Army. Tequila, as always. Good to see you, my man. Adrian Troca, fantastic comments recently in the certain Flat Cap videos. Love you, Adrian. Really do appreciate you tuning in. Ayanami also had a great comment as well on the Hincapie video. Good to see you, Ayanami. Martin Walton in the house. Boya tarde, lads. Okay, I'm going to try. Como voce, or is it como voce stałeś? I think it's something like that. Like, how are you doing today? I think it's something on that line, but I'm trying to learn Portuguese, mostly because it sounds like a cooler Spanish from time to time, Martin. So I would say I'm going to try my Portuguese from now on. Big up, though. Hopefully you're keeping well out in beautiful Lisbon. Dan N, fantastic comment on the Copia video as well. Good to see you. Sean Hurl, who's been watching a lot of it of the Black Up videos recently. Good to see you, Sean, all the way from Paxton Road. Big up, my man. We have Wemberley in the house. Good to see you, Wemberley. Saying evening, Army. Will Levy pull the plug as he always loves to do? I mean, well, I guess we'll find out, Mr. Wemberley. Chris, good to see you. Winky Lover in the chat. Hottest Spurs saying evening, comrades. Good to see you, Hottest Spur. We got Nick Coys, Hardy man. Good to see you, my man. John Stokes, always good to see you. We have the diamond. We have the legend that is Welsh Gal, probably with, lawn chair, IPA in hand. Good to see you, Welsh Gal. Clement's in the house as well. Got Big Red. We have Caveman as well. Good to see you. Everybody, do smash that like button while you're in here. Feel free to throw in the super chats if you do want to ask the panel anything in sort of this stream. But yeah, let's get it started. We are going to be kind of talking about maybe kind of, I feel like, creative midfielders, since I don't really know where to really start, because I don't want to spoil maybe the stream for people who might be popping in a bit late. So maybe creative midfielders might be a good place, to start. When it comes to the creative midfielders, though, like it was last time, everybody, we're kind of doing a rendition of who do you think Spurs will buy? And then you can also, just because I don't want to torture everybody, who do you also want? And from what I've sort of gathered, there are a lot of creative midfielders kind of on the books, that we are sort of looking at. Zaniolo, we've had a really recent sort of rumor with. Lucas Paqueta has been in there for like a week or two. Hakan Çalhanoğlu is kind of the most recent one. Weston McKennie I put in there just because I think Paratici supposedly really likes Weston McKennie. But I must say, I don't really see us buying creative midfielder before we go into Korea. So it's a bit interesting as to who we actually would go for. Maybe I'll start with Kieran here. Kieran, do you feel like Spurs will even buy a creative midfielder? That's what's also kind of, on my mind right now. Perhaps we might just buy another center mid, not even another creative midfielder. Do you think Spurs will even buy one in the first place?
To be honest, I think you've nailed my thoughts about Korea. If it happens, I don't think it's before Korea. Just don't see it happening. Before the window started, I did feel that it's a position that we would address because we as fans were sitting there going, "We need this, we need it." We kept going on about it throughout the season. That it was a point where I thought we're going to go out and we're going to do it. Surely we're going to back Conte. We'll get a creative player, but the longer the window goes on now, the more I'm kind of sitting here going, I don't think we are. I think maybe we're happy. We've got Basuma. Maybe it's a thing where it's a deal for later in the window where we see how we're faring in pre-season, and maybe we just kind of go and get that extra player if we feel it's needed. But at the moment, I don't know. I've actually done a complete U-turn because, like I said at first, I thought we're going to go out, we're going to do it, we'll get Emerson or we'll get someone in, and now it's like, yeah, no, we ain't signing any creative midfielder.
It doesn't it's almost turned into like in fact, what's actually a bit interesting about it is this whole Richarlison business where, take us back to that original transfer stream we had done. Richarlison was on that stream, but we were just like, shooting, blanks in the dark where we were just like, I have no idea what forward Spurs will be signing. Turns out Spurs have actually gone full pelt and went for the very expensive option with Richarlison. What I do find interesting, though, is would they do that with the creative midfielder, Darius? I don't really feel like that. I feel like if they're going to get a creative midfielder through the door, it's not going to be an expensive one. I would imagine it's going to be some sort of cut price deal, or even like Kieran said, maybe not even get one at all. Who knows? Just buy another Basuma-like midfielder or Ollie Skip-like midfielder just to come through the door, just to fill the bodies. I don't know.
I do think that it's needed. I don't think another midfielder is necessary when you have, in my opinion, 4 midfielders right now who could all sort of play within each other or play within a double pivot. I think any of the 4 that we've got at the moment would put up. I know you probably have your favourite. I know you probably want to see Benson, Kurt, Basuma, but I think all 4 of them, with Højbjerg and Skip as well included, I think they can all play in that role, and the drop off in quality is not that high. So for me, getting a creative player is probably the most important in terms of a midfield option, but in terms of like general transfer dealings, like we all mentioned, it seems like he wants the bulk of his squad to be there for the preseason tour. If you sort of look at what we've done with the Richarlison deal, I know we've mentioned Anthony Gordon going the other way as well. I think if you're trying to do a deal with somebody, I'll give it as an example. I know it won't happen, but the guys on our slide here, for example, if Ndombele wanted to go to Lyon and Lucas Paqueta wanted to go the other way, you wanted to sort of lessen the fee, or you sort of wanted to include a deal going in, you could sort of find trade deals, and that's what I think we'll probably see later on in the market. If Paratici really is desperate for a creative midfielder, it'll be sort of like an opportunity that comes up, or sort of a player included in a deal. So somebody who's got a year left, you might just think let's grab him as well, let's add it on, let's see what they say, something like that. I don't think it's going to be a priority. And then also, again, maybe loan deals. So if you do want a quality midfielder and you don't want to spend the money, you get him in on loan. You potentially have options to buy. You look at clubs that maybe need, a bit of money straight away. You give them a good loan fee, and they might actually turn their head and say, right, for now, we'll take it if you guarantee us money within the next 2 years or so. So I think it will be sort of like a Paratici Wheeler dealer sort of deal going on to get a creative midfielder. But I don't necessarily think it will be like how we sort of dealt with Basuma. I don't think it'll be immediate, get him and sign him.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. But to be fair, though, I think what we're starting to see in my eyes, Darius, is that creative midfielders, like a lot of people in the chat are saying, originally we thought this would be a position that Spurs would look to fill right away, whether it be a cheaper one like an Emerson or it be a more expensive one like a Sergej Milinkovic-Savic. It just felt like Spurs were probably pretty desperate to sign it. By the looks of it, it's almost might fall to sort of the last of the priorities. It'd be nice if we did sign one, but it's not looking like, one maybe Spurs are desperate to sign. You could probably maybe argue.
Yeah, I would much rather see the money go into other positions. If you said
still
to me,
want to see it happen, but it's just the last of the priorities.
Ericsson's on a free. If you told me Ericsson's going to cost you 60 mil, I guarantee you everybody who wants Emerson to join the club wouldn't want Emerson to join for that price. So
No,
despite him having a great season, so
I agree. I think we can all agree. I suppose the comments that you've been bringing up on the screen, Jack. I think we, like everyone, including people watching, agree that it is the lowest priority position.
I'm glad I picked it first then, while people are getting into the building as well. Perfect one to pick first then.
We have so many other positions that we look at and we're kind of going, yeah, okay, cool, let's go and get this player. We need to get that position through the door. We need a backup to this player. We need to upgrade on this player. And I think because we don't necessarily play with an attacking midfielder every single game, it's one of those ones where you kind of just go, look, if you could have got an Emerson on a free, then cool, you get him in if he's willing to rotate,
right?
Or if you can get someone else in on the cheap that is willing to come in and rotate, then cool. But if not, how often are we really going to play with an attacking midfielder? I suppose is the question. Is it really worth, like Darius said, going spending 30, 40, 50, 60 million on a player that might only play half of the games?
I'll be honest with you, I agree with that. And also, now you've mentioned it, I don't think we're going to really start with a 3-5-2 that much next season. I do think he is still going to prioritize 3-4-3, which makes me think if he wants to go to sort of 3-5-2, it's going to be sort of in-game changes. So for me, if I'm going to put my money in sort of creativity in that middle, I wouldn't necessarily go for a specialized number 10 who's almost limited to that role. You want somebody who could do that box-to-box role, like a Sergej Milinkovic-Savic. I know he's obviously far from our options, but someone like a Jude Bellingham, where the creative numbers are high, but you still have all of the other packages of being a box-to-box midfielder. Therefore, if you do want to sort of make that change mid-game, it's a play that you don't need to make an entire substitution. You just say, look, you push on a little bit, we'll bring somebody on, we'll bring somebody off. I think he'd rather somebody with high creative numbers, so a good eye for a pass, rather than somebody who is a number 10 who may have that package to play that number 10 role and be in the box and be a threat. But at the same time, I think it's not necessarily that goal threat he wants. I think it's creativity in the middle that he's looking for. So you don't necessarily have to buy a number 10 for creativity in the middle.
What's so fascinating about the 3-4-3, I must say, is that when I've seen breakdowns of, much smarter people who know tactics well with the 3-4-3 and Conte's 3-4-3 in particular, the two center mids in that pivot of the 3-4-3 were actually supposed to be some of the least creative players, in the team, because the whole point is that all the creativity essentially comes from out wide and comes from the overlapping wing backs, as well as, the inverted sort of kind of wingers and forwards. And it's kind of interesting because then it sort of explains why maybe Højbjerg and Bentancur were so good, because they're decent passers of the ball, but are they going to pick world-class passes out, every game? Probably not. Like, they might do it occasionally, but definitely not every game. Whereas, like, if you're getting a creative midfielder, you're sort of suggesting that Conte will switch to a 3-5-2. And the big question that's probably on someone's mind is, how often are we going to switch to a 3-5-2? Is it going to be 1 week 3-5-2, the next 3-4-3, or is it going to be 3-5-2 every other 4 or 5 games or something like that? That's the big question.
This is actually what I was going to say as well. Like, we did shift either in-game, like during in-game, we shifted to a 3-5-2 a couple times last season, but it seemed like the couple times I remember, and it's very few, Kulusevski shifted in behind the two. And I wonder if it's maybe a thing of where we're going, well, if we can't get someone who's better than him to play that for a very cheap price or on a free, then maybe we just leave it as it is and shift him inwards. Maybe that's the case where they're just kind of going, if we really need to sort it, we'll sort it after everything else towards the end of the window or in January or whatever it is. But if we can't get it now, I think maybe they're just thinking we can shift someone else in.
And obviously, sorry to interrupt, but obviously with Richarlison potentially coming in as well now, you could see Harry Kane, who could do that role better than Kulusevski, drop in, and Richarlison come on and sort of take that role up going up front, and then you still don't lose Harry Kane on the pitch, and you gain sort of a very good attacking threat in Richarlison. So I think you're definitely right in what you're saying. I think we all are in the consensus that it's not going to be 3-5-2 we start with, but it's going to be sort of in-game transitions that will sort of confuse teams, and you need quality players to do that. So I'd rather a creative centre mid, if that makes sense, rather than a complete and utter out-and-out number 10, if that makes sense to people. Just somebody who could put a through ball through the middle. Like you said, you're the perfect person for me would be your boy, Bruno Guimaraes. You're not going to get him now at Newcastle. He would have done that.
I think we got a version of that with Basuma, though. I'm actually satisfied on the Bruno Guimaraes. I think, Basuma is a very comparable player to Guimaraes, which is why I'm kind of sort of satisfied and no longer, crying myself to sleep on that missed opportunity, to be fair, Darius. Super sticker in from Tottenham Gold saying, how's it going? It's going very well, Dermot. Hopefully you're keeping well. I did put your link in the chat, everybody, especially if people want to check out the FIFA streams that Dermot is putting out. He's playing FIFA, guys, and he's putting it out on YouTube, which I don't even know how he's able to do. Very, very impressive. So everybody check out some of the FIFA streams that he's been putting out there. Top quality. Big up, Dermot, though. Really do appreciate support. And then we also have one from Sean Hurl from Paxton Road saying, Zaniolo and breaks and mends my heart. THFC. I think I'm missing this one. ASR and one. Roma? AS Roma and one. Maybe he's a big Roma fan, Sean. Maybe you've told me this before, Sean, and now I forgot, which is actually a bit embarrassing. Perhaps he's a big Roma fan on top of being a Spurs fan. Yeah, AS Roma, all tied in one. Zaniolo, he's broken his heart as well as mending it. I mean, the guy came in with so much potential, Sean, and has maybe finally sort of started living up to it. I've said this before, and maybe Darius and Kieran can back me up on this. I feel like Zaniolo is kind of like an Odegaard, where he's still so young, but it feels like he's been around for like 5 or 6 years or something like that. Zaniolo, like I've known about the kid for a long time, but when you look at his age, it's like, wow, he's still 22, but I feel like he's been on the scene.
He's only 22.
Forever.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I think Jude Bellingham will probably be something similar. Like when Jude Bellingham turns 22, we'll be like, he's been playing for 10 years.
That's the,
like sort of.
I mean, that's the crazy thing. Sorry to interrupt you because I just wanted to cut in just because obviously you said Bellingham. Every time someone says his age, even though I know, it's like anytime someone mentions his age, I go, wait,
it's not real.
Wait, yeah, I know that. I know this. Why am I like expecting he's older? It's because you've heard about him for the past few years that you don't expect him to be as young as he is.
I think Zaniolo is something a bit similar. Obviously not nearly as, living up to the hype as Jude Bellingham has been, but something a bit similar where this guy, I feel like I've known about him since he was 18 years old, Zaniolo. Like I feel like we've known about, his big move to Roma and, him kind of breaking out in that team, especially I forgot that old manager they used to have there. So I don't know. Zaniolo. For me, though, I guess maybe this is a good time to bring up, maybe to answer the creative midfielder question, for people. And we're going to use, your very generous super chat here, Sean. And I do appreciate everybody. Check out Paxton Road. We will be putting in the link into the chat. Don't you worry. But I guess, Sean, he wants Zaniolo. Is that the one who we actually predict getting? It seems tough at this moment in time because Christian Eriksen is now off the cards, which would have been the easiest prediction. If I were to pick amongst these four, I'd actually see us going after a Zaniolo or a Weston McKennie, actually. And Weston McKennie is an outside shout because Parachichi really likes Weston McKennie.
We've seen there's been rumours, and I say unfortunately, whichever way you take it, those rumours haven't been necessarily from the most reliable sources. But Çalhanoğlu has, or how we pronounce his name, has been linked with us as well. So, Zaniolo and him both been linked. McKennie, someone who's shown interest. Paqueta was linked earlier in the window. So, but at the same time, like we were saying earlier, it just looks like we're not going to sign one. So it's like, pick your number,
Big up Sean Hurl. Appreciate support. Big up Tottenham Gold. Just want to welcome a few people that have been popping into the chat. Adrian Troca saying midfielder options are Zaniolo, Paqueta, Eriksen, I think no longer on the table, my man. Milinkovic-Savic, certainly the big one, but definitely the most expensive one. And now that we just spent all that money on Richarlison, it's hard to see us spending it on a Milinkovic-Savic. McKennie, of course, Tielemans, Madison, Zielinski, I think is a very outside shout that I would see could be a dark horse, potentially. Like, who knows? All of a sudden, we're just linked with Zielinski and we just seal that up. But I think it might have been Kieran the other day that did say Napoli players are sold for a lot of money and they don't give away their Napoli players.
The only good thing about him, obviously, like I said, Napoli players, they just generally go for a lot. They generally ask for a lot. But where he's kind of not had a good a season as the previous, that's maybe where you kind of get him cheaper or around his actual price. around his actual
valuation. Yeah, I agree. And then Seko Fofana, who had one of the best Brazil scout highlight reels, I must say, in the business. I mean, that guy honestly had some spectacular finishes over in Liga and have one of the best performances against PSG out of any player this season. So Adrian Troca, I think most of those players have actually featured on the channel. So everybody do check him out. Big up, Adrian. Good to see you.
What happened to the Mikkel Damsgaard links? I mean, I'm looking at his stats now, and
I think that was the story of last season.
Defensively, he only played 11 games this season. I don't know what's happened to him this season. To be fair,
huge injuries. I think happened. Some major injury might have happened to him. Yeah.
Even just looking at his numbers. I mean, defensively, pressures, tackles, interceptions, blocks, clearances, all in the top 10% of Europe's top 5 leagues. I know it's a small sample size, but I always look at defensive quality when I'm looking at these signings now, just because if Richarlison is a main target, and it seems like Conte was wanting him, it seems like defensive quality is going to have to be just as important as going forward. So I'm just surprised at what's happened to Damsgaard. I did not know he got injured. I'd love to find out what injury it was. I'm going to probably do a bit more.
Terry Wright, good to see you, Terry. We got Zoe in the house, absolute legend, Zoe. Good to see you. Carl Higgins, good to see you, my man. We got Moondog, good to see you, Moondog, brother. Mick Hermelak, hopefully everything's keeping well. Kais is in the house saying, I think Malinowski would be great. Probably one of the best strikers of the ball, I must say, in all of Serie A as well. That guy has a lethal long shot, Kais. Our man in the Twitch chat saying, I'd like to see Spurs spunk a bit of money on someone like a Ruben Neves. I think maybe in the past, before we had gotten a Basuma, Luke, I could see us maybe going for that. But Ruben Neves, I imagine, is going to be going for around the 60 million, sort of kind of mark. And whoever wants to stump up that cash, welcome to do so. But I don't see Spurs doing it. Big up, though, Luke, representing the Twitch army in the chat as well. Big up, Scott. Good to see you, my man. And then Martin Walton saying Mateus Pereira is a great shout, wasting away in the Middle East right now. That guy who had a really good season for West Brom 2 seasons ago. When we had Nuno, I actually thought he should have been the creative midfielder that we should have signed, actually. I thought he would have been a really, really clever signing for us because I thought he had a really good season at a pretty dismal West Brom team. So I completely agree. And then Josh Smith saying, who do you think we could bring in before preseason? That's pretty much the whole, premise of this show, Josh, because we are about to move in, to the other kind of signings that we do predict will happen. Just to answer you, though, here, Josh, I feel like Paratici, the Richarlison signing, looks like it's happening sometime this week. But what I really am interested in is Paratici going to get in a center back and a right wing back before we set off for Korea? I think if he does do that, most Spurs fans should be happy. If he doesn't do that, you probably could question maybe whether Conte has the majority of those important signings that he had requested, ahead of time before they went into Korea. So Paratici, he's going to have to get a center back and a right wing back, I think, through the door, Josh, in order to please Mr. Conte. So that would be my thoughts, Josh. But big up, my man. Do appreciate support as well, brother. But that's the whole premise of the show. We're just going to be kind of predicting, the transfers, my man. And I figured perhaps, we have actually over 100 in the house right now. So please, everybody, do smash that like button. Maybe we go into something a bit spicier and something that could be a bit more fun. So left-sided center back. I don't know. Maybe people are sick of it. Maybe people just, want us to, just finally sign one. But we have 2 weeks left, I would probably argue, in order to sign a left-sided center back. And it is starting to get, kind of crunch time in a moment. Hincapié, we've been rumored with. Supposedly, Spurs are preparing some bid of around 34.5 million pounds for the guy. We have Longley as like this backup, sort of option in case we don't get any of our, main choices. We have been linked with Ndika at one stage, but I haven't seen many links since then. Gavardiol doesn't look like it's happening because he is going to sign a new contract. Seems like someone that you could get the following summer. Still have that beautiful Pau Torres in the middle that you could go for as well. Honestly, guys, I am also very confused on the left side center back option. If I were to help you out, I'll start with you, Darius. It seems like Longley is maybe the sort of, if you were to make a prediction, it could be Longley, just because maybe Spurs have given up on, going after their main targets and they're just going to settle with Longley for a season by the looks of it.
I wouldn't be too against that if that was a straight loan deal, solely because with the ball at his feet, he's actually very good. And it's really only pace and aerial issues that Longley gets hounded for. And I think actually he, as a backup to Davis, if Davis continues the form that he had last season, I think he would be fine just for a year, knowing that you can get one of these players next year. Because in my opinion, I wouldn't go and break the bank on Pau Torres. I don't see him sort of adjusting well to the Premier League. However, Hincapié, who I've watched a little bit more now, Vardio and Ndika I all think could do quite well in the Premier League. So if that if that means you have to offset that purchase for a year or even until January, I would get Longley in on a straight loan, give them a bit of money. Barcelona probably will take anything at this point for players that are useless to them. And I would just make sure that you've got some sort of backup to Ben Davies, because I would rather, this is what I don't get with certain sort of fans I've seen on Twitter, completely being against Longley. I'd rather have Longley than completely nobody at all. And obviously, I'd rather have one of these three targets than splash our money on somebody who feels like a panic buy. So for me, getting Longley on a loan. Sorry, go on.
No, but you were saying Longley is a bit disrespected in your eyes, like, given a, maybe a bad rap. I think Pau Torres has a similar, sort of kind of reputation where I think people are totally fine not to like Pau Torres, but some of the sort of like, people have called him a shit defender. People like, I don't know, it's gotten like a bit far, I feel like, at times when it comes to Pau Torres. Do you feel like it's a similar, sort of, kind of situation with, Longley and Pau Torres, just like people maybe being a bit harsh on those guys?
I think Pau Torres is a better left centre back. He's also Longley's right footed, I'm pretty sure, and Pau Torres is obviously, the rest of them are left footed. I prefer Pau Torres as a player. I just think that I wouldn't pay £55 million for Pau Torres if, for example, Hincapié could be bought for 30 million, or Vardio, who may be 80 million now, if he signs a contract similar to what Nkunku did. Nkunku's release clause next year is £60 million, I believe. So if he does the same thing, realizes and sort of believes in his own ability, I think you could probably get one of these high quality centre backs in next year. So for a year loan, I don't think Longley's that bad. And if it means you could go and shop in for the, Bremer or somebody like that who can cover or potentially take over Dyer's role, then speed that business up, do that business this summer, and get the left centre back done next summer. You can always rearrange your business. I'm pretty sure we did that with Kulusevski and Bentancur.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Welsh Gal with a super chat, just quickly saying, don't laugh at any chance for swooping in for any good players from relegated teams. Welsh Gal, not laughable at all, because I must say that's practically what this channel thrives on, is trying to get the best deals for the lowest price. We like to make it hard over here. We like to make it difficult. And honestly, I would say Paratici, hopefully, he takes a look one day, because when he's looking for deals, this is what this channel tries to do. Relegated teams, I think Emmanuel Dennis would be a huge miss for us. You're getting probably one of the best dribblers from last season in Europe. You're getting a guy that was able to put in goals with a very up and down Watford team that didn't even know which manager was going to be, in charge of the team. Probably didn't even know which tea lady was going to be, in charge of, the, in terms of, I don't know, like Watford, just so much turnover, just such a toxic club to probably be a part of as a professional footballer. And he did very well with it. He also had, I think, the most non-penalty goals of most of kind of the strikers that we've sort of been rumored with, or forwards that we've been rumored with. I think he had the most nutmegs in Europe or something like that, like, as well, like Emmanuel Dennis. The guy is honestly, I would say, a ticket seller and would be a huge screaming deal for us. I think he's valued around like 20 million to 25 million pounds as well for us. I think that would be a huge loss. But maybe just to you, Kieran, I know you were going to say something else, so do say it after, but to maybe Welsh Gal, do you think there's like a relegated center back that we could be taking a look at? James Tarkowski has gone to Newcastle, but I don't really know apart from that.
He's gone to Everton, hasn't he? Not Newcastle.
Or he's gone to Everton. Yeah, Everton. Yeah. That's right.
I was actually just trying to think. There's actually not too many people off the top of my head, but I was actually just going to comment on you saying in a Watford team that has ups and downs, I'd more call it downs and downs, or downs and even downer. It's like there wasn't very any.
When has there been an up?
The ups was the first game of the season, the Premier League. That's after that it was all downhill.
I did like the Cucho Hernandez bicycle against Arsenal as well. That one sticks out in my mind.
He moved over to the MLS, and I'm actually excited about that. I feel like we might tear it up over there, actually. I feel like, I think he's good enough to tear it up over there, but I think that was a good purchase for the MLS. Dwight McNeil would be the last one I might suggest, maybe, Welsh Gal. Like, I'm kind of a fan of Dwight McNeil, despite, I know, maybe him being kind of a bit of a toxic, sort of kind of player. Some people think he's worthless. Some people think he's, nowhere near as talented as he was made out to be. I have a sneaky suspicion he wouldn't be a bad shout for left wing back, because essentially that's what he's been playing for Burnley, as a left wing back over there. It's someone who creates from those sort of wide areas, someone who has impeccable delivery, but also works extremely hard defensively. Be kind of interesting to see someone like a Dwight McNeil as a left wing back, but he might not have sort of the recovery pace or like the athleticism to do it potentially. But that's what I would say. Maybe Maxwell Cornet, Dwight McNeil, Emmanuel Dennis. Those are the ones that, sound pleasing to me for relegated players.
I think the big things whenever not the big things, the big thing or the overarching thing whenever you're looking at relegation players is, unless they're like a player that you look at and just go, well, this player could definitely do it at another club and start for a team higher up the table. It's always just a matter of how much you're paying, because it's like Dwight McNeil, depending on how much we paid for him, I'd be happy to see him in the door. But, because it would, if you got him really cheap, it's one of those ones that if it doesn't necessarily work out too well, you can still sell him to someone else lower down the table and probably
send him to Everton, man. Yeah.
Love it. Well, there you are, Welsh Gal. Absolutely. I think, a really good question. And to be fair, like, I don't think it's laughable at all. I think, in fact, Spurs, maybe for these sort of creative midfielder positions, these, kind of proliferary auxiliary positions that we still need to fill out, looking at the relegated market would be a very good idea for me.
Could bring back Sissoko.
Okay, that's maybe a bit too far, considering we did practically rip up the contract almost like Aurier's. Made it a bit more respectful. But yeah,
I actually can't believe we got $3 million for him.
Actually, I was happy that he did well for Watford despite relegating. I think he still had pretty.
Didn't he get captain? He was captain after 3 games or something crazy like that.
Yeah, he's one of the better players the whole season. Yeah,
I've seen some Watford fans disagree with doing well, but I suppose all of their team didn't necessarily do well.
That's fair. Yeah, they actually had a better forward line than they did anything. To be fair to them.
Yeah, I think the forward line wasn't too bad, but everywhere else on the pitch questionable.
If we were to predict who this left-sided center back would be, lads, I would make the prediction it is going to be Longley, and then I could see us saving money potentially to go after a Gavardiol or a Bastoni the following season. Actually, if even I were to go bolder, Longley is the person we're bringing in for left-sided center back, and we're actually going to go after Gavardiol instead of Bastoni. Is it even, maybe potentially?
And my hot take is that would be the better option to do as well. I think he has a way higher ceiling and basically does the same thing. So I actually think that's the better option. I think, I wouldn't be ever since Kieran, and I know you're a big Leverkusen fan at heart, Kieran. I didn't know anything about Hincapié. I watched a bunch of stuff on him. He's very, very good. And the best thing about him is well fitted to the team as well and sort of what he needs to do. If we brought in Hincapié and Longley, I wouldn't be too mad at that, to be honest with you, because Longley then goes back. And why don't you spend that money on then another left centre back? Because Ben Davies is going to be 32 almost, probably older than that now. I don't know how old Ben Davies is now. So why not bring in Hincapié? And he's only 20 years old, I believe, 21 years old. Bring in Longley as well on a straight loan after that year's done.
Are you sold on Hincapié? After doing my video, I wasn't sold on Hincapié, to be honest. But we have Kieran as a more of a resident expert.
I think this is what I sent you before, where I said, we did this video last time, we were talking about him, and I said that he's very raw at the moment, and I don't think he's one that you kind of instantly go, he's going to come in and make no mistakes. He is still very raw and very young, but my point last time was, I don't see why Leverkusen would sell him unless they're just looking for a quick flip and we're paying a decent sum of money. But the rumored 25 million to me, I can't even see why they'd let him go for that. I think if that's truly what he's going for, I'd still pick up him and Longley. He pretty much is, when he plays, like an undeveloped left-sided Romero. Just very he's just not there yet, but you can see
he's exceptionally aggressive by the looks of it. He looks really aggressive, and do you feel like he makes up for not being as big or as strong as maybe others with that aggression? Is that maybe how he kind of wins the ball back instead of just being like an Ndika who just powers over people? Does he kind of just poke the ball away kind of sort of defender, do you feel like?
Well, like I said, he's pretty much like an undeveloped Romero, where it's okay, you can kind of see that's the play style he's got, and that's kind of the development route he's taken, that style of player. He's not the one that's kind of sit off you and let you have the ball and just or guide other players at the back. He's the player who literally wants to step out and go and win the ball back and set his team back up on the front foot. But part of that is also the way that the Bundesliga is played and the way the football is played there. I'd actually take Longley. This is actually what I was going to say on Darius's point as well. I do think a lot of people disrespect him. I think people, obviously he has made some blunders for France and at Barcelona, but I think people forget that he actually was, a well-respected player at Sevilla. Yeah. And Kulusevski and Bentancur were out of favour at Juventus. Came to us and tore it up. Obviously, not every player you sign that is out of favour is going to work out, but I think if you can get him on a loan, where it's a loan, you got a potential really cheap deal to buy, but it's not an obligation. I think there's a deal there, and then like you guys said, maybe go for a Gvardiol next summer.
I like that.
You know what? Honestly, sorry to interrupt you, Jack, again, but I would think the best option for me, or one of the best options for me before, and this is before Arsenal and Man United were linked to him, would have been Lisandro Martinez. I think he would have been another good option to play as a left centre back in the back three. And also he's played in the back four, he's played as a DM as well. I think he would have been another good option, but seems like he's going to either North London or Manchester. So unfortunately that ship sailed.
Yeah, it kind of has sailed. To bring up, this image again, maybe just to, satisfy some people here. Like I said, just to make my prediction bold and clear, I think Longley is happening. Everybody prepared to be underwhelmed. I think Longley will be a good signing, but it is an underwhelming signing, let's be honest. And then I see us probably going for Gvardiol the following summer. That's how I could see this happening. Who do I want? I think I can be realistic and say, Gvardiol isn't happening. So if I were to actually buy a center back this summer, if I really were to spend money on a center back, I'd probably go for Ndika. I think Ndika, he's valued around £28.8 million. 2023 is when the contract goes up. It's actually a cheaper option than people think, despite how young and talented he is, just because of the contract situation and because of the market value. I feel like he is actually a cheaper option for us. He could probably play through the middle as well as being able to play as a left-sided center back. I mentioned this before, but I feel like Spurs have a bit of an aerial sort of problem where we actually struggle at winning, kind of defensive duels in the air. It seems like we're even actually quite bad at clearing our lines when it comes, to kind of sort of aerial battles. If not, even Emerson looked like the most confident sort of player, in the air, where like even Romero struggled at times. We all know Moon Boots struggles in the air. Ben Davies is actually almost the best the back three actually in the air, because Ben Davies almost scored a few times actually on occasion, from set pieces. So if you ask me, I actually feel like that back line needs a bit of, some more aerial prowess is probably the better way to, talk about this. And Ndika, if you ask me, probably the best of, this whole, screen in front of us in terms of being kind of a threat from set pieces, as well as just being like a physical presence. So I'm going to actually go for Ndika for who do I actually want? Who do I actually predict? Longley. Maybe just to make it more transparent, Kieran, who would you go for? Just to predict, and who do you want?
I think right now I'd probably take Ndika, just purely because I think he's further down that road for right now and what we need than some of the other players that maybe accessible on that list, like Gvardiol and Pau Torres. The amount of money, maybe. Well, I don't think it would get Gvardiol. Pau Torres, I think for the money you'd have to pay, it's not worth it. And from the remaining three, I think Ndika is probably the best option for us in terms of improving that starting 11 and squad. But I do think we'll get Longley on a loan.
Darius, who do you predict? Who do you want?
Prediction: Hincapié and Longley on a straight loan. And I want Josko Gvardiol. I wouldn't for me, I know a lot of people probably would get angry at spending like 80, 90 million on him. But for me, I don't think there's going to be many centre-backs of his quality, of his level, 20 years old, doing what he's doing. So I would break the bank and get Gvardiol, but that's never going to happen. So I'm going to say Hincapié and Longley on a straight loan.
I just have a few, comments I'm going to bring up here. Just for you, Kieran, I'm getting Juan Foyth vibes from Hincapié, says Martin Walton. Do you want to put fire to that, or do you want to validate that? Water to that, maybe put water to that. Sorry.
I don't know. Like, I'm not like this is the thing. Like I said, he's a very undeveloped player. There's very, very little minutes he's had. Half a season of games, pretty much at Leverkusen. What I've seen of him, I think he has potential. I think he's, like I said, he's very raw. There's two different directions he could go. He's either going to go down a route where he will be a Juan Foyth, or he'll go down a route where he'll be a very recognised, player or centre back across Europe. And I think there's two different routes he could go. And at the moment, I'm not sure. That's why I said for 25 million, I'd pick him up, because I still think you'd get that money back from someone, but yeah, like I said, that's why I probably go.
And the system is designed for him. To be fair, it's not like you're asking him to play something he's not uncomfortable with. Just our man in the Twitch chat saying, "I speak to a Leverkusen fan, and all he could say is that Hincapié has potential. Don't know what to make on that." More or less, I think that's what Kieran basically just said, Luke. So I don't know if your reservations or any of your doubts have been eased at all. But we are going to keep plowing on, everybody, and we're actually going to stay on the center back conversation here. And this could be an interesting one, because what's kind of on my mind is, what if, Kieran, we actually went for a left-sided center back who could also play in the middle of the three? And I know we probably should sign two center backs, but there is a feeling in me that maybe we don't sign two center backs, and actually we do go for like a left-sided center back who can also play in the middle of the three. So essentially, he's basically competing or challenging Ben Davies as well as Eric Dyer at the same time. A good example of that, I think, could be Pau Torres. I could see Pau Torres competing for Eric Dyer's spot as well as competing for Ben Davies' spot. The same thing goes for Ndika. I could see Ndika challenging for Eric Dyer's spot as well as challenging for Ben Davies' spot. So I don't know, Kieran, do you see where I'm kind of going with this? Do you feel like maybe Spurs might go for a left-sided center back who might also play through the middle if need be?
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say. I think
kind of like Richarlison's, similar to Richarlison logic. Yeah.
Do you know what? I do see where you're coming from, because it's one of those ones where you're not necessarily specifically forcing someone out, but it's someone who could kind of shift across the back if Dyer was injured and play in that central role. I think maybe if that's what we're planning on doing, maybe could have gone for I think we probably would have lent into Pau Torres if that was going to happen, and play someone maybe a little bit more aggressive next to him on the left if he was potentially going to shift in. But looking at the links, I actually don't think we'll go down that route. I think Dyer's pretty nailed on at the moment, and not even necessarily just from my thoughts of how he's done last season. Just every single manager who comes in seems to like him.
Yeah. Badiashile has been mentioned in the comments. I was so close to putting him in the left-sided center back one, but we were only linked once with the kid. And I feel like he's such a talented center back, like Martin is saying, that I just don't really see Monaco selling him unless it was an extortionate fee, of some sort. I could be wrong, but I think even his contract is not up for a while, I believe as well. So it's just one of those players that I think we would have to pay over the top for. But I've actually suggested that guy in the past, actually, Natine, as someone that I think we actually should go for that maybe no one is talking about. I think Badiashile is a great example of that. Ndika probably in the past was another good example of that. Why is no one talking about Ndika? We should mention this guy more. I feel like now everybody really likes Ndika. He's kind of, been very, very common of a suggestion, but it's an interesting, kind of situation. I really do like Badiashile, to be fair. Zabarnyi is very interesting because if we were to sign two center backs, let's say we spend a ton of money on a left-sided center back, Darius, could we maybe go for a cheaper option like a Zabarnyi or something like that from Ukraine? Maybe he'd be a one for the future, sort of player. We've been linked with him, kind of randomly a few separate times. It wasn't one day that we were linked with Zabarnyi. It's been a few separate times from what I've noticed.
I think with this position, in my opinion, I would go for somebody with age and experience, preferably in the Premier League. But again, if it's a quality centre back, you can sort of debate that they don't necessarily need to have played in the Premier League. Somebody in that range of a Varane, a Koulibaly, Thiago Silva, maybe not that old, but I think you need somebody like that with players like Romero. And from what it looks like, I think we should go for aggression on that left centre back side as well, and sort of forward drive and forward play. You need somebody to sort of rein in those two aggressive centre backs if they do push on, and be that person that drops off and has that maybe that added game intelligence to just, when they see those centre backs pushing on, trying to win the ball high up, you be the one to sort of protect that back line or protect your goalkeeper, should I say. So I think experience is what we should be looking for in that centre back role. And I couldn't give you any names off the top of my head. I think Bremer's a great shout. If you can get Bremer for a price of like £40 million or so, maybe £35 million, I think that's a no-brainer. Zabani is okay. Again, I think is the price tag going to be too much? If the price tag is ridiculously low, then it's not really. I think
he's valued around £15.3 million by the looks of it. And if we know the Ukrainian players are going to go for very, very cheap if they are, going at all. Like Dodo's going for like 10 million or something like that, euros, whatever it is, like something absurd. 2 years ago, he would have gone for 25 million euros, I would imagine. Now he's going for like 10 million euros. I could see Zabarny, if he even leaves at all, he's a Ukrainian international, so maybe he actually wants to just stay, in the Ukrainian league, until things settle. But
I definitely think it's one of them. It's a good shout. I think experience is my go-to for this one. Just because if you lose Dyer, there's not much experience. There's a lot of quality in our back line, obviously, if we bring in one of these left centre backs, but there's not much experience. And I do think that that's a very important factor to have in that back line. We mentioned sort of centre backs looking good with partners, with specific partners. I think we need somebody to be that partner, to be that person that allows the other people around them to play to their best ability. So I would look in the Premier League for this centre back if we're going to get it. But for me, it's not necessarily a priority. It's not.
Are we signing two of them, Darius? Just to maybe confirm for the Harris or for the Flat Cap Army here. Are we signing two of them?
Guaranteed left centre back and another one, hopefully.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Does two centre backs mean left centre back and another across the line, or can it just be two from one position? Because obviously,
it can be
potentially getting hit. That he feels like we might even go for Hincapié and Longley on loan, which would be
that's what I'm kind of thinking. That sounds But Longley, then, like I said, Longley, I should have included him in this list, but Longley would be a good example of someone who could probably play through the middle, and when in fact he probably has been identified as a left-sided center back, maybe in actuality they're going to play him through the middle.
I think a good shout is a really good shout, and you mentioned it sort of just then. I think we'll not break the bank necessarily, but I think we'll spend upwards of £40 million on a right centre back or a left centre back who's specifically specialised to play on sort of one side of a back three. And then Longley coming in on a free can cover Dyer, can cover Davis, or the new left centre back potentially could play on the right as well. So I think we'll probably spend money on a specialised left or right centre back. And I don't think it'll be a right centre back because we have Romero. So I think it will 100% will spend the money on a left centre back this summer. Be that Hincapié, be that Vardiol, be that Torres, be that whoever that is. And we'll also get Longley because that's just in case. Because even if you don't get your top quality left centre back this summer, Davis and Longley, I'm not actually that mad at that, to be honest with you. I think if Davis continues his form, I think he probably could be the starter over the new centre back anyway. I think it'll be difficult to sort of throw Davis out on the bench like that anyway. So yeah, I think if Longley comes in, I think it gives them a bit of a safety net to sort of keep shopping around, but obviously not have to be forced into paying for any players or spending excess money on any players.
That's why I think it's a smart move. To be honest, that's why I like this deal. I think it's something, if you actually look at how Conte has improved some of our players at the back and their actual, I don't want to say concentration, but he's he has improved their concentration and improved that consistency. When you think of Dyer, even Sanchez, when he has needed to step in, has stepped in and done well under Conte. And I feel like Longley, yes, he's out of favour, but that opens up a potential loan deal where he can come in for Davies. And I think Conte could probably get him back, playing I think as well, like you got to think of the pressures of Barcelona as well. Like, you know, their fans aren't necessarily the most forgiving. So you make one mistake, it's like get out of the club. You're the
They're
worst
probably
player
a bit
to
more
play
high
for.
strung now than usual, I would say as well. The Barcelona fans, like
Yeah.
you know, considering situations.
But I think, yeah, I think like Darius said, I think that would be a good deal, and I think it eases the pressure off. I think a lot of teams now, when they look and they know we need or we want a left centre back or a centre back in general, it's pretty much okay. Well, we'll just fork the price up a little bit, and you know you want this, so you're going to have to pay it. If we get Longley on loan over the line, then it's like okay, we can relax a little bit more. Now we can really kind of work a deal for the player we really want, and if it's not possible, at least we've kind of got ourselves covered.
I think a lot of people are sort of overdoing this deadline of career a little bit too much. I think Conte will be.
You don't think we want a center back and a right wing back? I feel like that's where
I think he'll be disappointed
like all
if we don't
fans
get him.
would be happy. All Spurs fans I think would go happy if we went.
Definitely, I think if we got a right wing back, if we got, for example, Joaquin Mela and a left centre back in before summer, I think that's everybody's.
What if it was Jed Spence and Longley and
Jed Spence and Longley again? I wouldn't be over the moon, but I'd be like, okay, that's an upgrade on the positions that we've got, or at least it's an upgrade on the depth of
at least he's got his players.
Yeah. So for me, definitely, I think if you guarantee Longley and a right wing back, and say to Conte, look, we could potentially get, I don't know, the Bastoni deal looks like it could be on. Vardio looks like Leipzig want the money now since they're not going to get as much for Nkunku. I think if you said, look, we will get you that high quality player, it just may not be, you know, right before the summer. I think Conte would rather that high quality left back come in or left centre back come in than, you know, you rush and get a player in for pre-season for him not to play him all season or him not to be the right fit or the perfect fit for Conte. So I don't think that deadline is as you know, as serious as people are making out to be, but I think Conte said that just to say, look, this is what I want. But if you can find me a better deal and it takes a couple more weeks, I'm not going to be mad at that.
I think the thing we've seen with Paratici in his very short tenure here, but even at Juventus, his time there, he's not someone who is scared of going and getting players in January. And I think that if it's some options that we want that are first targets right now, maybe it's a case of, okay, look, this just isn't possible. You know, like unless we want to go splash all of our budget on this one player, well, that's obviously not what we want to do. It's not possible. You know, let's get cover in for now, and you know, in January we'll go back in for them and try and push that again, or next
especially
season.
If we're doing well in the season as well. Yeah, it will definitely be right. We need to push for this and get somebody in. So and injuries as well.
Yeah, and I think obviously, Paratici and Conte is pretty well known that they have a good relationship. So I don't think that we would sign a Longley if Conte wasn't happy with what it was. You know, it's rumoured obviously Conte's first target was Bastoni, and then someone said it's Guardiola. But if those two aren't, available, I'm pretty sure Conte probably would have signed off on a potential solution to that, or a temporary solution to that problem.
Josh Smith saying Ali Gold has said we could get 2 in. For me, Bremer and Ndika. That would be probably the most prime solution, Josh. And I think you put that in as a comment, I think on the most recent copy of video, if I'm not mistaken, Josh. I could be misquoting you. But yeah, Bremer and Ndika, you get basically something very different to an Eric Dyer, like a more aggressive, almost like another Romero that, excels at playing through the middle. I reckon he could probably play as right-sided center back too. Bremer. And then in the case of Ndika, someone who could also play through the middle, but then, plays at the left side center back. To be fair, though, too, if you're signing Bremer and Ndika, that whole kind of physical prowess problem that I was kind of speaking about with the back line, completely fixed with those two coming into the team. You're probably signing the most physical specimen like center backs in maybe, Europe when it comes to those sort of kind of metrics. So I kind of like that, Josh. But if I were to make my prediction with Ali Gold saying that we will get 2, I think it's going to be Longley, and Nkapia does make sense, but I could see a Longley and like an Ndika. I could see a Longley and it's really tough. It is really tough. I don't know, Longley and
I think we can.
It's Longley. I just see it being Longley,
and it's someone.
It's not bad. It's not bad though. If somebody else comes in, it's not bad. If he's our sole centre back that comes in, then I'm gonna be like, yeah, that's not
Longley
good.
plus Bremer, that could actually make sense. Longley plus Bremer, I could see that
That would be
actually happening
okay.
because
Because
Spurs are
Davis would
preparing a
still
bid
start ahead of him.
supposedly.
I'd
Yeah,
like that. I'd like that.
and it satisfies the Ben Davies lovers, kind of like myself recently, who've said the Ben Davies have had, a better season than Eric Dyer. Maybe you have Longley compete with Davies, then you have Bremer compete with, Moon Boots, which could be nice and fun to see. So maybe it makes everybody happy. But looks like we are getting 2 center backs according to Ali Gold, as well as according to the panel here. So everybody, let's get prepared for that. But I think another sort of important position that we need to fill, everybody, before this big Korea trip is, of course, the right wing back slot, as well. Jed Spence seems to be on the cards. So I am going to sort of kind of preface that and say that no matter if Daniel Levy is negotiating this, it seems like eventually it's going to get done. Jed Spence does seem to be the sort of player we are going to get. At the same time, though, just to maybe honor the skeptics, Kieran, are you getting Tomiyasu vibes? Maybe actually ask Darius there because he was betrayed by Tomiyasu in the past. I'll ask Darius first. Darius, are you getting Tomiyasu vibes from this Jed Spence deal? Is this just one huge smokescreen like the Tomiyasu one was?
I think it's a bit different because you're hearing stuff from the other side, sort of talking about we're basically just waiting for you to give us the money. It almost seems like Chris Wilder seems like he's sort of moved on. It does seem like it is just a case of age old, just penny pinching almost. But as much as that is penny pinching, I actually agree with Daniel Levy this one time. I don't actually think,
one to penny pinch on.
Don't actually think we should be paying £25 million for Jed Spence, as good as he had a season, as good as I think he could be. 20 million max, and that's add-ons included for me. I think if you're paying 15 plus 5 add-ons for a 21-year-old who's had one good season, I think that's very good. And I don't get me wrong, I think regardless, if Conte got a hold of him, he would turn into a very, very, very good right back or right wing back, just because he has everything needed attribute wise to be a Conte right wing back. It's just he wasn't taught, and everybody says, oh, he'd be a better inverted right back. I think that's only because of the role he was playing in Nottingham Forest. I think if you told Jed Spence to go on the outside and put ball in the box, I think he'd definitely learn how to do that over half a season to a season. So I actually agree with the penny pinching. If Middlesbrough,
I agree,
are waiting on 25 million. The same with Ajax. I mean, we're waiting on Ajax for 25 million. So, and he should be going for that. So if Middlesbrough feel like he is worth that, then hold out. But if we go and get somebody else who's similar to Jed Spence, who maybe, has a better, I don't think ceiling is the right word to use, but who maybe might fit in instantly straight away. But I think Mailer would fit in straight away into that starting 11, whereas Jed Spence, maybe you would have to see him sort of develop, learn a bit. I think you get a similar sort of progression like Sessegnon did, where he wouldn't necessarily be a starter. So I don't think 25 million is worth.
I don't think he's worth Levy's tactics. I agree with your agreeing.
I don't think he's worth 25 mil. Yeah,
I've said this before too, Darius, and I actually, and it's kind of, these days, you have to say that quite bravely, what you just did. So I'm very proud of you there. And I completely agree. I actually feel like if any player that you're just going to say, oh, just pay them whatever they want, Jed Spence is like the last player you would do that for. Like, why would you just say pay them whatever they want? Like, you can't just apply that sort of logic, I think, to every transfer you make. You have to, at least with some transfers, like try to penny pinch, try to, get the best deal possible. Jed Spence seems like the sort of player to try to get the best deal, possible for us. Why would, of all the players, I know for the position, right wing back is the position we'd ideally like us to spend the most money on. We'd ideally like to sign the most world-class player in. I totally get that. But if you are going to be signing Jed Spence at the end of the day, why would you spend 30 million on a guy who isn't nearly worth that? And also, probably if you're going to settle for something that isn't maybe what most fans would be satisfied with, there's no reason you should overspend for it. No reason you should overspend.
I'm seeing West Ham potentially make a bid for Joachim Mailer. If he goes to West Ham and we miss out on that because we're sort of wanting to buy Jed Spence and putting that money into Jed Spence, I think it's quite silly. To be honest with you, I think if anything, if any of the signings look like it's a Paratici like sort of cloud of judgment or cloud of disguise, I think Jed Spence is probably the one where he might be looking for a deal that's just pull the trigger like Basuma and do it and use Jed Spence to at least let him deal in silence. But again, I wouldn't be against it if he joins. I wouldn't be against it if he doesn't join, to be honest with you.
I actually think that the reason this feels like it's taken so long is because before the window was even opened, we were linked with him.
Mm.
But part of me feels like we weren't even talking to Middlesbrough about him, because whenever Romano spoke about him before, when there was interest, it's like, yeah, they're interested, but no talks, nothing, nothing yet. It's just interest. And then there's a lot of reports kind of going, Tottenham have agreed, personal and I think maybe those make it feel like it's dragged out a lot longer than maybe the actual talks have been going on for. I suppose
I think personal terms are agreed as well, aren't they?
Yeah, that's been rumoured. When I say rumoured, that's been put out in reports that it's been agreed. But I suppose lately it's so hard to tell what's true and what's not true. You have so many people contradicting each other. I feel like you guys put the nail on the head. I don't know what that term is. That's a bit of a Samism, but it's different because sometimes we look in the past and we go, just put the money down. But I think you only use that term when it's a player that the fee that's being demanded is it's just an exceptional deal, or it's like a player that you 100% need, and that is the key player or the player you need. It's just put down the money, give them what they want. But when it's a player that you can potentially do better and there are other options on the table, if it doesn't work out, it's one of those ones where it's like, don't throw the money at them. There's other options available. You try and negotiate the deal you want, and if not, there's players of similar quality or level that are available that you can get for less or the same amount. I do like Jed Spence, and I think under Conte he'd be a very good signing. A lot of people weren't happy with his tweet about sweet to Neil Warnock.
I think I was happy about it. You're not asking the right people.
No, to be honest, I like it. I
think Conte would have loved it as well.
It's the same as people have slated Richarlison and said about, when he tweeted Jamie Carragher saying to take his name out of his mouth. And I'm like, those are the players I want, because they're the players that when people say you're not good enough, or you'll either be Champions League or you'll be non-league, or you'll be Premier League or you'll be non-league.
They don't have shallow egos, or not shallow. They don't have fragile egos. Egos.
They're players that go like, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to prove you wrong. And then when I prove you wrong, I'm going to sit here and tell you in your face, I proved you wrong. And that's realistically, they're the type of players you want. Think of it this way, right? Or the easy drawn comparison is you play Chelsea or Arsenal. Do you want the players that if the manager shouts at them, they're kind of like, oh, okay, I'm sorry? Or do you want players that are going to go out there with an ego and just go like, we're just going to smash these lot? You want that player who's got a bit about them. And to me, I think Jed Spence does have that. And I think he would develop under Conte. But 25 million, if that's 25 million, but it's like a hefty amount of that is add-ons, in the future, then I'm like, okay, maybe. But I think
I'm gonna call them Ali add-ons from now on. If there's Ali add-ons where you have to do so many flipping puzzles and quests to actually get the money, then I agree with you, Kieran. But I don't think that is. I think they actually want 20 million and 5 in add-ons, which is too much.
And that's what we going to sign another right wing back, guys? I kind of want to transition this. Are we going to sign? Because it seems like Jed Spence, at the end of the day, is the player we are going to sign. Are we signing another right wing back or another wing back in general? It could be like a Kostic. Who knows? Maybe you pull that, out of left field. But, do we sign a Wilfred Singo or a Nawel Molina as well on top of, maybe, signing Jed Spence? Because some people are quite worried going into next season with Doherty, Jed Spence, Sessegnon, and Perisic as the known wingbacks. Some people want something more than that. So I don't know about any one of you guys can go first, but do you think we'll sign another wingback on top of Spence?
I'll take this first because you did say that you maybe felt like Spence is the one that's going to happen. I actually think that we'll only get one player. And I think if Spence isn't done in the next week, maybe week and a half, then I think it'll be someone else.
Interesting.
I don't think it'll be him.
Signing one.
Yeah.
Piran is setting it straight and we're only signing one. So if we are only signing one, then Jed Spence is the one that we have a lot of faith in, clearly.
Well,
no, which is fine. That means we've done our homework.
There's a caveat to that.
Okay.
The only caveat that I say that is because Emerson Royale seemed pretty adamant in interviews he's done so far that he's like staying.
I
But
think
if
he's
he
happy
does,
being a bench player.
if he moves, then I think maybe there's potential we get someone else. But at the moment, even though there's like rumored interest from Atletico Madrid, I don't think he's going to move, and that's why I say we're only going to get one. If he does
That
go, then maybe we'll
disappoints
get
me because that means I'm going to have to release my Emerson book, a bit later because I have to wait until he leaves in order to write my Emerson book. So it might have to be waiting. But Darius? I think Kieran made a good, kind of prediction there. Emerson's probably staying, so that means only one right wing back. So I don't know.
I
Like,
think,
is it Jed Spence and that's it?
Emerson is slowly developing cult hero status. And if he stays for 2 more years max, he will definitely. The compilation is already a meme. People love him. I'm not gonna lie. I actually am.
Even his face is kind of a meme. Like
I've
smile and
warmed to
everything
the
is like
guy. I
me.
can't even lie. I see the guy smile. I see him have fun with all of our players. I do think he actually has an influence. And you know what?
Did you see the Agent Emerson pick as well with him and Richarlison? Like, even that was
I
just a
have not
meme in
known.
itself. Like him and
Oh,
Richarlison just doing like it's just
I
so
agree
funny.
with. Do you know what?
I
I
love
think
Emerson.
the weird thing is he's like clearly someone who like is willing to improve and really wants to
That's
improve
exactly
and
what I was going to say.
impress
Yeah.
people. And I think
He's very
that's kind of
gullible by the looks of it. Yeah, like an
I
Emerson.
think that's why people are taken to him. But the compilations, it's become like a meme.
Futsal compilations.
By being
now,
a meme, it's like the foot. That's what I was going to say. The futsal one. So it's become such a meme. Even that Tottenham admins were jumping on it. Like towards the end of the season, they were like, "Emerson dropped the comp," and it's like the official Tottenham page is tweeting this out for Christ's sake.
He's liked by a lot of people, and I do think, like you said, you hit the nail on the head, mate. Like, if you've got a player who's willing to want to improve, who never played right wing back ever in his career, and is now wanting to improve and play under Conte, and let's not get it wrong here. When Doherty got injured, he was putting in man of the match performances and putting in very good performances towards the end of the season that were important like aspects to us getting in the Champions League. So I'm not, in my opinion, if we're classing Doherty or Doherty as injured or injury prone, why not go and get another right wing back? And this is why I think that Joaquin Mela is like the perfect choice, because you've got Cesc, Perisic, Reguilon I think should go. If you get Mela in, then you've got Doherty, Emerson. Mela can start as a right back, be a right back backup, be a left back starter, be a left back backup. I think he just allows you to be so flexible. And again, if you then get Jed Spence as well, you've got about 5 or 6 wing backs here. If one gets injured or 2 gets injured, you've still got multiple to play in that role. And even if you can't get Hakimi for 80 million, I would rather then, because it's such an important position, flood that line or that position with 5 or 6 players. Maybe when Reguilon hasn't had the game time he wants, he leaves in January. I'd just rather bring in Spence, bring in somebody like Mela. Even if you can get Kostic for 16 million euros, I'd just bring them all 3 of them in and deal with the issues later. If you don't want to work for your position, then you're obviously not wanting to be in a Conte team. Emerson is not the best right back, probably the worst right back out of them all. Yet he's probably favoured most by Conte because he tries the hardest and he wants to improve the most. So I say bring as many as you can in, because it's the most important position in that team.
Just actually to mention on that about Conte liking him, because there was he did the interview, I think a few days ago it was, and he said that when they're doing tests in training, I think you actually mentioned this maybe on the Irish Hotspot, Jack. But then I seen an interview after, and he was saying like that when they're doing like the tests in the gym, Conte pretty much a lot of the time has been saying like, "Come on, Emerson, you come on, keep pushing, you can do better." And he looks and he's actually saying like, "My scores are higher than nearly everyone else's. Like I'm outworking a lot of the people, in the gym and in the training ground." And Conte is going like, "Give more," and he's like, "Oh, I can't." And then he pushes himself and he does go beyond. And then Conte is finally like, "Well done, Emerson." He's like, "Keep going." It's kind of like, I don't know. I feel like Conte has some sort of liking to him because he's a player that works hard. Conte likes those types of players.
He likes players that make up for it in other ways.
Yeah.
That don't have all the talent in the world, but make up for it in other ways. To be fair, actually, if you were to, maybe this could be a good extra time, for the Irish Hotspur, who wins the beep test, in the Tottenham team, you could make a solid case for Emerson winning those. And from the beginning of him coming into this, team, these are sort of the attributes of his that I've noticed. And don't get me wrong, like the reason Emerson sort of is my favorite player is kind of, or not my favorite player. Don't get me wrong. The reason I really like Emerson is because kind of Kieran more or less described it. He is a kind of a shit footballer, but he makes up for it in all these other sort of little ways. And it is kind of entertaining to watch someone be so atrocious as a right wing back, but sort of kind of, find other ways to like put in a 7 out of 10 performance. Maybe he doesn't, dribble past, players with any skill or anything, but he'll get stuck in. And, when you need him most to, he'll, knock away, a clearance. He'll make like an unselfish run or something like that, which is kind of what I just enjoy about Emerson, is that he sort of is an unselfish, player, like a very just team oriented kind of player. And at the end of the day, I can't hate those guys. And I think maybe the reason perhaps I have such a soft spot for Emerson is because people really hate him by the looks of it. Like they really hate his guts. And I think that's just a bit unfair, because when someone is just giving their all for the club and all they're doing is just putting in their best effort no matter what, it seems kind of a bit harsh to really hate them. Because at the same time, you see people say like, how could you hate Winks? How could you hate Winks? Like he's given our all for the club. And it's like, at the same time, people are saying, how could you hate Winks, are hating Emerson. And that's like, I don't really get that sort of metric, because it's like Emerson has probably put in more hardworking, like, performances, grafting performances than Harry Winks ever has in his entire career for Spurs, if you ask me. And so I do kind of feel like there's a double standard when it comes to Emerson. We love as Spurs fans, we love hard work, we love effort, we love unselfish sort of players, but we at the same time shit on Emerson. So I don't know. That's kind of, I think it's a bit of a double standard.
It's what you know what I sounds so bad, but I genuinely believe that if he actually had the ability to cross, he would have probably 40% less haters. I think for me, and this is just my perspective.
No, he's a bad footballer, and I think that can make people hate him.
I agree with Darius here.
The only time I got really, 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 really angry at Emerson was when he had 20 yards of space and he couldn't put a ball in the box. Really and truly, that was the only time I got really angry at Emerson. He had a lapse of concentration. He used to sort of finish, or when he was defending sort of at the edge of the box where we'd be at a right back, he would sort of let his body be flat and he wouldn't be very good at jockeying. And I see a lot of players cut in on him. But apart from that, those are the two reasons why I got angry at Emerson. If Emerson could cross, honestly, I don't think he'd have half the haters that he had. I think it's just the stress of seeing somebody with all the space in the world put a ball in the box and still hit the first player.
This might be perfectly
There's nothing
summarized.
more angry.
This is perfectly summarized. Martin, I think you might have exposed me here. This is probably why I like Emerson. He has a beautiful smile. Honestly, a fantastic looking guy. Has a bit of a meme sort of like aura about him. Has a terrific attitude. There's nothing about him that suggests, he has a bad attitude in the dressing room. And then he's just a shitty wing back. That's why I want to write a book about this guy, genuinely. Because, he's just one of the worst footballers we've ever had, but one of the most likable footballers we've ever had, I must say.
I think the one thing that actually maybe why people are giving him a little bit more leniency now as well is because of how bad he started with us. But then across the season, he's actually got better. I'm not saying, oh my God, he's got better. He's unbelievable now, but he's got better. Like you've seen the performance against Liverpool near the end of the season was way better than his first performance versus Palace. But like Darry said, I think, if you take that performance that you put in against Liverpool at the end of the season, and then you just give him the ability to be able to actually cross the ball, I think, and then have that and just do that consistently, even if it's just a little bit below that standard, but you could actually cross. I think a lot more people would be happy with him. But the problem is, in this Conte system, like you said earlier in the stream, Jack, a lot of the width you get from your fullbacks and a lot of that creativity and chances you get come from your fullbacks. So if you can't cross, you're just going to piss people off.
Mate. Genuinely, it's not even. I think he'll probably, I think he will be a player that will be happily available when needed. He won't care if he's starting all the games because he knows that. I think if it came to it, like you said with the Liverpool game, with the City game, I think he probably chooses to start Emerson in those games. Same way he starts Sessegnon. I think in the big games when he knows he has to put a bit more, responsibility in defending, I think you'll probably see Emerson and Sessegnon start in that right and left wing back. And I think Emerson accepts that that's his role. I don't think he necessarily feels like he is a right wing back, but defensively when needed, he can be that person. And Jed Spence is a 21-year-old, giving him time. And then if you get one more player in, obviously that's going to be 4 right backs potentially. But again, that's the position that you need the most, isn't it? At the end of the day, creativity doesn't come from the middle with our players, as we mentioned. The creativity comes from the wing backs. So again, if you're not going to break the bank on one world-class wing back, put your money in a bunch of good ones that fit the profile. And you won't have to necessarily worry about that drop off. I do think there's going to be a lot of injuries with this World Cup and just everything happening. I think if you're going to fill out a position and overstuff a position, I would rather overstuff wing back than any other position on our pitch, because at least you can sell in January. At least then it's the position that's most needed for quality and cover. So I'm actually not against it.
People forget you have 5 subs this season.
5 subs, literally.
And this is the thing. Before you had 3, right? So those extra 2 now, you can potentially kind of go where our wing backs are so up and down. If you've got more depth or options there is a potential now with 5 subs where you can kind of go, well, one of our wing backs is getting a bit tired, but that's where we're getting our creativity. We'll bring on someone else with fresh legs who can do that job for us. And like you said, I think there is going to be a lot of injuries this season. Not necessarily for us, but just
in general,
broad, across the board. I think there'll be a lot of injuries. I think teams actually that don't have that many internationals could have like some surprise good season.
Yeah.
I'm actually quite disappointed that Martin has sort of, caught me here for my whole Emerson rhetoric. I think he's basically exposed, my entire thing is, at the end of the day, I think the whole reason I defend Emerson so much is just because I think he's a very likable guy. And I find it kind of crazy with how much people seem to passionately hate him. I think it's, it's a bit unfair, in fact, with how much of a likable person he really is. And he's also put in better performances than most players that I feel like we probably should be directing maybe that sort of hatred towards. I don't think you should direct hatred towards really any player, to be fair. But if you were, Emerson would be one of the last players on my list, if you ask me. Just someone you might be frustrated with. Maybe that's
he's sunny, but not that good.
He's one that frustrates. He's not one that you really hate. And to be fair, Martin, I think you've sort of exposed maybe my whole, Emerson sort of love. And he actually might even be seen as a meme within the squad. I think it was even on that on the day with Norwich. I think even Højbjerg, when he was holding the Golden Boot Award, Højbjerg wanted to photo with it.
That's so true. He was the one taking pictures, wasn't he? Like he had won the
so even Højbjerg sees him as a meme. When Højbjerg sees him as a meme in the team, like even the squad sees him as a meme. So he must actually be. I think even Neil Shafton said if Emerson were to score, he'd be the player that everybody would be smacking on the back of the head. You'd probably see Conte run onto the pitch, if he scored or something kind of player.
Do you remember when he scored the goal against Brighton earlier in the season? And he went across, it deflected, and he started running off. And all of a sudden he's like, yeah, and he starts like going mad. He's like pointing into the crowds and stuff. And people were like, is he pointing at Conte? And he was like pointing at his friends, like giving out to us.
There would be no other better player in that whole squad to score a winner and win a cup for us than Emerson. I think Emerson is very. I don't know if it's a Brazilian thing, but I think Emerson's very much like Lucas. He's fully committed to Tottenham, and I think just the whole ethos. I think just keep him for the good vibes. As bad as that is, keep him for the good vibes. I'm pretty sure he's not on more than 80k a week, so it isn't like we're paying him Ndombele wages, is it?
No. Moving on to the forwards, last one here, everybody. We're just going to keep this, like I said, hopefully around sort of a podcast length. I think we're definitely achieving that here. Forwards, I don't know how much progress we've made, guys, because Richarlison seems to be through the door, probably seen as the backup striker / kind of competing for some spot in the forward line. So basically the real question is, are we signing a winger or a striker? Because the only players I've seen us be linked with is Anthony Gordon as a winger. I don't see that happening because he's essentially their best player alongside Richarlison. It'd be pretty crazy for them to sell their 2 best players.
And amazing for us.
And the 2 players the players I've seen us most linked with are more or less strikers at the end of the day. Of course, these are old links, since the Richarlison rumors. But I guess the question I'm really asking here is, are Spurs going to sign a winger or another striker to replace Steven Bergwijn? And Kieran, because I know this is sort of your kind of, idea, and I know you have really good things to say about this, let me know. I want to get your kind of thoughts on this. Will Spurs buy another winger or a striker, especially if Steven Bergwijn's headed out the door?
Well, anyway, my thoughts on this. I think if you sell Bergwijn, or when we eventually sell Bergwijn, you need to bring in a winger. Or if you're bringing in Richarlison and your aim is maybe play him on the wing, then you need to bring in someone else who can cover up front if Richarlison is going to start on the left. Because I don't see the logic with, and I'm not trying to dig people out when I say this. I'm just saying mentally that I can't understand where some fans come from when they go, all our season before, we're going, we need a backup to Kane. We need a backup to Kane. And then this season coming up is going to be the most intense season in terms of fixture congestion, in the last God knows how many years. People are just going, well, don't worry, we only need to get Richarlison in. And even though Bergwijn's going as well, we already need a striker. Now we're going to be losing a winger who was our kind of first choice option from the bench. So you're going to lose a striker. You didn't have a striker and you needed one. Then you're going to lose a winger, but people are saying, well, we only need to sign a striker because Perisic can play on the wing. And it's like, I don't know. We're trying to play Twister with our squad, like shifting players all over the pitch going, well, he can play that. And it's like, I don't think we should sit here and say, well, players can play there. So whatever, just get Richarlison and we'll shift people into other positions. I think it should be a case of you have players for those positions, but if you are stricken massively by injuries, then those players from other positions can maybe slot around, and shuffle. I don't think you should be looking and going, well, if we get one injury in that position, then this person can be the backup and shift around. So I think, look, if we get Richarlison through the door, I think it depends on how we view him, because obviously for Everton, he's played central and he's obviously also played on the left. So it's how do we see him? Do we see him more as kind of like a striker, but he can play on the left? Or do we see him as someone that's able to give Sonny a rest, but can also then maybe shift in the middle? It depends on how we view him primarily, either left-sided or down the middle, to how I feel we should go. Obviously, I've seen you had Sasha Kaladzic on there. I've seen a rumor recently. Obviously, he's got a year left.
I think he's going to the Premier League somewhere. It might not be Spurs, but he's headed somewhere. It looks like.
I seen a report, and it was saying that because obviously he's on his last year of his deal. Sorry, my camera's gone out. 2 seconds. Because he's on his last year of deal, he could be going for as little as £6 million. And I was thinking, like, if you get Richarlison, who can play on the left, maybe you bring him in for £6 million. I'm saying that because I've seen him obviously on your image. I think that's maybe an option where you can still play Richarlison down the middle, but you can also bring him in on the left if you want. Then
that's how I sort of see it: is that Richarlison can play as a very quality backup striker, but then also can be one of the best backup wingers you can bring on as well. I know I'm maybe misusing the term backup because he's going to get plenty of minutes, I think, Richarlison. But I think Kaladzic could be an interesting choice. Let's say if it really all goes horribly wrong, Kane gets injured, maybe a Kulusevski gets injured too or something like that. Having like a true striker available to us might actually be quite helpful. So Ben Brereton Diaz or a Kaladzic would be actually helpful, I think. Sorry, Karen.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, because you said you hate using the term backup. I hate using that term as well because
I always mistakenly use it.
Yeah, I know. So do I. So do I. And that's why I was going to say the past few days I've like really started like trying to say rotation because that's what it should be. Yeah. Like if you look at, and this is the thing, to back up the point I was saying, that if you look at Liverpool, they don't shift players. They rarely shift players into other positions to fix issues. They have players and they have rotation players and they rotate it to try and keep those players fit. And I think if you look at City even, there is literally a term for rotating their players. It's called Pep Roulette because they literally have quality players in every position that can just rotate with one another that you never know who is going to start. That's literally a term. And I feel like that's what we should be striving for with our squad, where you get to a point where you kind of go like, I don't know how many months, maybe like 4 months from the end of the season, you pretty much knew what the starting 11 was. Like it got to a point where I seen a notification on my phone, Tottenham Hotspur posted, and I'm like, oh, that'll be team news. I don't need to look at it because I already know who's playing, who's starting. Where we should strive to get to a point.
Yeah, you want to be surprised.
Where you actually want to look at the team news and see who's playing, because it gets to a point where we can shift players in and out, and it doesn't really affect the team's quality of performance.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, I actually would love to have a lovely surprise to see Richarlison pop up on the team sheet one day. Darius, to you, Richarlison is probably through the door. Do you see us maybe signing a Ben Brereton Diaz, a Kaladzic, maybe, who knows, like an Anthony Gordon? Really, the question is, are we signing another striker or a winger or nothing? Like, is it just going to be Richarlison?
When I look at it, I think Kieran is pretty much spot on. If you've got Richarlison coming in, he's a left winger, predominantly a striker as well. I think, and you look at the squad, if Kane gets injured, he fills in that role. If Son gets injured, him or Perisic fill in that role. What happens when Kulusevski gets injured? If Kulusevski gets injured, we haven't got anyone left-footed who can play as a right winger to cover him. So I think looking at a right wing, young, who's tall, physical, I think that's the big profile that Conte is looking at. Even looking at the Jed Spence links, everyone seems over 6 foot that he wants to bring in this team. So
there's a profile
I think
type.
There's a profile definitely, and I think if you look at players who can play that role, there's a couple that come into mind that I think, like you said, a winger is probably the best option to go for. Somebody like, in my opinion, Matheus Cunha could be a great option. I know he's right-footed, but I think he's young, again, physical, plays for Atletico Madrid. I think he would be a good option off the bench. I think you'd actually sort of invite a role like that to play off the bench. I think that would be a good option. He's very skillful and he's very physical as well.
Very
so I
skillful.
think he fits a lot of those roles. And then somebody like Jeremy Doku as well. These players are players who I think would
haven't heard that name in a while, I must say.
These are names that we've been linked with as well. I think it's not necessarily, these are good quality players, but they're not starters, not better than our front line. And I think that's, as bad as it sounds, should be the market we're looking at, where these players, Doku is at, I can't remember where he's at now for the love of it.
He's at Rennes.
He's at Rennes, yeah. And obviously Cunha's at Atletico Madrid now, but he's not getting the game time that I think he wanted or wants. So that is a step up for him in terms of, I think, game time. And I think he would see more game time at Tottenham. So I could see Cunha coming to Tottenham. And then Doku again, I think Rennes to Tottenham is a step up, going to the Champions League and playing behind the likes of Son, Kane and Kulusevski. I think you could pretty much sell that to him. And regardless of if it works out or not, if these players don't want to be there, they're not older than 22, 23 years old. I'm pretty sure you could get a good fee for them. If it's not even a loan deal, I think probably a loan deal is probably the best thing to do. Loan one of these players with a potential option / obligation if they play a certain amount of games, so you can guarantee in their game time and get a player in that rather than spend the money. Because I think Kulusevski, Son and Kane and now Richarlison is 4 very, very good quality players. It's going to be hard to convince any player to come in and play as almost like a 5th choice player. So if you bring in somebody on loan who's maybe out of favour, say to them, look, if you play a certain amount of games, we've proven to you that you are going to play for us. And then, you look at potentially making that permanent the following year. You save money as well, obviously, with not putting that fee in. So I think Kieran's perfectly on point with not necessarily going for a striker. Kalajdzic for 6 million, I would, again, it's one of those deals where you just throw the money and don't even worry about it. If you can get him for 6 million, just load up that forward line. But if you can't get a good player for that price, that really, really good price, loan a player like Doku, loan a player like Cunha, loan a player who we know is good quality and plays in a good quality team, but isn't getting that sort of, game time that they want and maybe could make a step up into a different team like Tottenham and Conte.
I think a funny flat cap Euro moment here about Rennes is that, when we were going into the Conference League games, everybody was hyping up Jeremy Doku as like the player to watch. Fast forward like 6-7 months later, it was like all the guys that we didn't have any idea who they were actually the really good players in that Rennes team. Like Bourigeaud, I think, is that one player who had a spectacular. Martin Terrier, as we know, had a really good season. There's like another striker, I think, there who also had I think it was like Laborda or something is his name. Also had a really good season. It was just hilarious that every single Spurs fan knew about Jeremy Doku, but he was like the last important player for Rennes this season. He didn't really do anything by the looks of it for Rennes.
I mean, he's in a top 9. He's in a top 1% for progressive carry. He's got 13.6 per game.
He's probably the most rapid player maybe on the planet, I might say, actually. But it is actually quite funny that team actually, we were looking at all the wrong places for who the actual danger men, were for Rennes. Very, very. And also that Rennes team turned out to be one of the highest scoring teams, I think, in Europe or whatever it was. It was absurd, what they were pulling off over there. So very, very funny. I actually remember those days. I wish I had done a better preview on them. Yeah.
Kind of the weird thing, because when we didn't play that final game and we got knocked out of the Conference League, other teams were making fun of us, but now they're all tweeting about hopefully getting players from that team. It's like you're trying to mock us at the time because no one thought they were this good, and now at the end of the season, there's people going yeah, maybe we could get this player in through the door pretty cheap, and it's like,
You know what? Laborde's a great shout as well.
Completely.
Yeah,
I think Martin Terrier would not be a bad shout
there's
either.
so many in that Rennes team now. I'm looking at that Rennes team. I'm thinking, wow,
I know.
it's actually a really good team.
Creative midfielder, Borisho, maybe just take the whole team. Why are we rating Inter when we could rate?
It's like Lens as well. RC Lens.
Yeah.
They've had I've not actually watched much of them, but I know a few people who, to be honest, it's kind of weird how much league aren't they watch compared to Premier League and stuff. Considering it English, but they just rave about Lens. It's like one of their favorite teams to watch alongside Marseille this season.
Well, everybody, I think we're going to wrap it up there. I think, kept it around a perfect sort of podcast length, ending around the hour 30 mark, just where we wanted to. Really do appreciate everybody that's tuned into the chat so far. Smash that like button on your way out. But we are going to be plugging, some of the channels. We've been putting the links in. I'm pretty sure by now you should have hit the link. They're also tagged in the title as well. Kieran's channel and Darius's channel from Paxton Road. But here it is, Kieran's channel here, everybody. Kieran actually and we do have a show coming up on his channel tomorrow, everybody, around I think the same time as this show is. So I would say, everybody, do smash that subscribe button, smash that notification bell, because I will be on his channel tomorrow, Thursday being. But Kieran, tell us about Let's Talk Spurs, or even the Twitter or whatnot.
Yeah. So like you said, just mentioned, obviously on the YouTube channel tomorrow, we'll be doing a stream. What do Tottenham still needs to do in a transfer window? Somewhat similar to this, but we'll kind of be looking a little bit more about what our objectives actually were before the window. How far along are we actually in achieving those? And, with the links and the homegrown quota, how does everything fit in? And, how our squad could potentially look for that pre-season tour. And obviously there is a load of other videos that I've got. Obviously, once all the Premier League kits are being released by clubs, obviously we'll be going through and ranking and rating some of the home and away shirts and third kits and stuff like that. And there's obviously 3 players, things like 3 players that I think will impress during pre-season, and other sort of academy players that I think are ready for a big loan out this season and things like that. So people are interested in potentially watching that type of content, or they're interested in seeing Jack, and I know Darius as well. We're talking about Darius coming over. So if you want to see more of their pretty faces, then
if you want probably a better idea of one that actually wasn't maybe done so last minute, one that I know Kieran has put a lot of effort in, and that I know is going to be a really interesting stream. Probably one that actually might be I'll be honest, a bit of a better idea than this one was. I think you'll really like it, because you'll probably get more of my honest opinions, as well as I think Kieran's honest opinions about what needs to be done. This stream was kind of like predicting, what Spurs are going to be doing. So it's not as much our kind of bias maybe being put into it. So I think you'll really enjoy that one. But Darius, tell me about Paxton Road, the channel I watch in my own spare time. I know you guys have everything from Ask Sid, happening, to your own transfer streams going on. Tell us about Paxton Road, my man.
Honestly, I think we've had enough of our little break now, because Sam's getting us all ready to get back into that season mode again. So Talking Points is returning on Independence Day, 4th of July, I'm pretty sure. So all my fans across the pond, you included, Jack, hopefully you have a little bit of time in your day celebrating to watch us and watch us out on our return to Talking Points. And I think also Sid is doing a show like he does weekly. As Sid, as Sid is one of the best transfer shows in the world. Who needs Sky Sports when you have As Sid? So honestly, just keep your eyes open. There's going to be a lot more coming up. And then obviously when the season gets into it, we're going to have all the stuff to do with Champions League, Premier League. We'll try and get as much done as possible. And like you said, I'm going to hopefully have my show going on, hopefully a European show to do with the Champions League. And I couldn't think of a better European show to do with you guys. So honestly, looking forward to that. Hopefully get that in the book soon. But again, you'll see me on these 2 amazing channels as well. So keep your eyes open for all 3 channels. And I'm pretty sure the content is going to be amazing.
Absolutely love that. Absolutely love that plug. Martin Walton in the chat saying, awesome work, guys. No creative midfielder, Longley on loan, Spence at right wing back, and no backup striker. Those are Martin's predictions. Love it, my man. This show is great, but it's got me depressed. Yeah, I'll be fair, Martin. But I would say I think Parachichi is getting a right wing back and a center back through before Korea. So when you do think about it, Conte more or less will have all of the least positions, signed that he knew were probably crucial going into it. So we're probably a bit underwhelmed, maybe a bit depressed. but at least hopefully not too
if Martin,
disappointed.
If Martin needs a bit of cheering up, let's flip it. At least we're signing players in the positions we actually need.
At least we're not making edits before players are signed as well,
Yeah,
at least we're actually making sure our players are signed before we start saying we're going to win titles and stuff.
Yeah, I'm not seeing Richarlison and many Spurs kits yet. We're still we're holding back. Good point there.
I'm holding back.
Until I see the one that he's doing with that and the cinch logo, make sure you can see the cinch logo. That's when I'll 100% start making edits. That is literally
I've seen some people doing like the fake shirt hold ups, and I've actually been looking. No, that's the pattern on that kit's from last season. That's not real.
There's some really good editors now. I mean, I saw a couple ones. I'm thinking, is that real or not? Like, honestly, some people have gotten way too good at editing players onto shirts now. I don't like it.
Love it. Absolutely love it. But everybody, really do appreciate you all tuning in. Be back later with Dave on the evening news headline for the Irish Hotspur. Do check out Let's Talk Spurs, Paxton Road. Really do appreciate these guys tuning in. Smash that like button on your way out. And as always, we will be seeing you.
Come on, you Spurs.